Welcome back to Insibook. Have you ever wondered, what if living longer isn't the goal, but living better is? In Outlive, Dr. Peter Attia redefines longevity, not just as adding years to your life, but life to your years. Backed by science and personal transformation, this book dives into how to outsmart chronic disease, slow aging, and thrive in midlife and beyond. Ready to become your future self's hero? Let's break it down. We begin this exploration with a stark realization. The healthcare we have largely known, focused on diagnosing and treating diseases after they manifest, is failing us in a critical way. It's a system designed to manage sickness, not to cultivate genuine, lasting health. We wait until the engine breaks down, then call a mechanic. But what if we could maintain the engine, tune it meticulously, and prevent the breakdown in the first place? This is the fundamental shift, the transition from what can be called Medicine 2.0 to a more enlightened approach, Medicine 3.0. The goal isn't just to add years to our lives, but crucially, to add life to those years, enhancing our health span, the period we remain functional, vital, and free from debilitating chronic disease. Medicine 2.0 excels at handling acute issues, infections, trauma, immediate emergencies. It has saved countless lives in these scenarios. However, it falters when confronting the slow, insidious creep of chronic diseases that are the primary killers and disability causers in the 21st century. Think heart disease, cancer, neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's, and metabolic dysfunction like type 2 diabetes. These aren't sudden events. They are the result of decades of physiological decline, often masked by a lack of obvious symptoms until it's far too late for effective, non-invasive intervention. The conventional approach often waits until damage is significant, offering treatments that manage symptoms or slow progression rather than reversing the underlying issues or preventing them from taking root. This reactive stance means we often end up treating diseases that might have been largely avoidable, accepting a gradual decline in function and quality of life as an inevitable part of aging. The true enemy, the book argues, isn't just death itself, but the loss of vitality and capability that precedes it. We identify the main culprits, the 4 horsemen of chronic disease: cardiovascular disease, cancer, neurodegenerative disease, and metabolic dysfunction, often starting with insulin resistance. These conditions are interconnected and often share common root causes rooted in our lifestyle and environment over time. Our mission, then, becomes not just survival, but thriving, ensuring that as we age, we maintain strength, cognitive function, metabolic flexibility, and overall resilience. This requires a proactive, deeply personalized, and science-driven strategy that starts now, not when symptoms appear. At the heart of this proactive strategy lies the recognition that exercise is arguably the most potent and accessible tool we possess. It's not merely about calorie expenditure or aesthetics, it's a fundamental biological intervention. The book guides us through understanding the multifaceted benefits of different types of exercise, emphasizing that a balanced approach is key. Strength training, for instance, is vital for maintaining muscle mass, bone density, and metabolic health as we age. Loss of muscle, sarcopenia, isn't just about weakness. It impairs metabolism, reduces functional capacity, and increases the risk of injury and falls. Building and maintaining muscle mass through progressive resistance training is therefore non-negotiable for long-term health span. This involves challenging our muscles consistently, gradually increasing the load or intensity to stimulate adaptation. The goal is to preserve the physical capabilities needed for everyday life and prevent the frailty that often accompanies aging. Equally critical is cardiovascular training, often broken down into aerobic and anaerobic components. The book highlights the profound importance of improving aerobic capacity, often measured by VO2 max, the maximum amount of oxygen our body can utilize during intense exercise. A higher VO2 max is strongly correlated with longevity and a reduced risk of numerous chronic diseases, including cardiovascular disease and even cancer mortality. Achieving this requires dedicated effort, often through sustained moderate-intensity work, famously categorized as Zone 2 training. This involves exercising at an intensity where you can hold a conversation but still feel like you're working, typically around 60–75% of your maximum heart rate. The magic of Zone 2 is its ability to enhance mitochondrial function, improve insulin sensitivity, build endurance, and bolster the cardiovascular system without the extreme systemic stress of very high-intensity work. While Zone 2 forms the bedrock, incorporating higher intensity intervals, anaerobic work, is also beneficial for pushing physiological limits, improving speed, power, and further boosting cardiovascular fitness, albeit requiring careful management to avoid overtraining or injury. Flexibility and mobility work, often neglected, are also essential components, ensuring range of motion, reducing injury risk, and maintaining functional independence. Ultimately, exercise is presented not as a chore, but as a foundational pillar of self-preservation and enhancement. Nutrition, understandably, occupies a significant space, but the perspective offered moves beyond simplistic dietary dogma. The advice isn't about following a specific named diet, but about understanding the principles that underpin metabolic health and sustainable eating. We learn that optimizing nutrition requires personalization, considering our unique genetics, metabolic response, activity levels, and specific health goals. The current dietary guidelines, often focused on reducing fat or calories, may not be optimal for preventing the chronic diseases we face. Instead, the focus shifts towards maintaining stable blood glucose levels, improving insulin sensitivity, and ensuring adequate protein intake to support muscle mass. Understanding how different foods affect us, particularly carbohydrates and fats, is crucial. Strategies like time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting are explored not as a magic bullet, but as a tool that can help regulate appetite, improve metabolic markers, and potentially enhance cellular repair processes. However, the emphasis remains on the quality of food consumed. Prioritizing whole, unprocessed foods, ensuring sufficient protein intake, vital for muscle synthesis and satiety, and managing carbohydrate intake to avoid constant blood sugar spikes and crashes that contribute to insulin resistance over time. It's about creating a sustainable eating pattern that fuels performance, supports metabolic health, and aligns with long-term longevity goals, rather than adhering to rigid, often unsustainable rules. The conversation centers on metabolic flexibility, the body's ability to efficiently switch between burning glucose and fat for fuel, which is compromised by chronic overconsumption and poor dietary choices. Sleep is presented as the third pillar, often undervalued yet fundamentally important. It's during sleep that our bodies perform critical repair, consolidation, and regulatory functions. Chronic sleep deprivation impairs cognitive function, disrupts hormone balance, including those regulating appetite and stress, weakens the immune system, and negatively impacts metabolic health, exacerbating insulin resistance and increasing inflammation. The book stresses the importance of prioritizing sleep hygiene, maintaining a consistent sleep schedule, creating a conducive sleep environment, dark, cool, quiet, and avoiding disruptions like screens before bed. Understanding our sleep cycles and ensuring sufficient duration of quality sleep is as vital as exercise and nutrition for overall health, resilience, and longevity. It's the time our biological systems reset and prepare for the next day's challenges. Beyond the physical, the fourth pillar addresses emotional and mental health. This is not a separate issue, but deeply intertwined with our physical well-being and longevity. Chronic stress, unresolved trauma, and poor emotional regulation can have tangible physiological consequences, driving inflammation, disrupting hormones, and contributing to unhealthy behaviors. The book acknowledges the complexity of emotional health, encouraging self-awareness, the development of coping mechanisms for stress, and the importance of strong social connections. It suggests that actively working on emotional resilience, processing difficult experiences, and seeking professional help when needed are crucial aspects of a holistic approach to longevity. Just as we meticulously train our bodies, we must also tend to our minds and emotional states, recognizing their profound impact on our ability to live long, healthy, and fulfilling lives. Neglecting this pillar leaves a significant gap in our strategy for thriving. With these foundational pillars established, exercise, nutrition, sleep, and emotional health, we can then delve deeper into tackling the specific threats posed by the Four Horsemen, armed with the knowledge and tools of Medicine 3.0. For cardiovascular disease, the conventional approach of relying solely on basic lipid panels, like total cholesterol, and blood pressure readings is insufficient. we learn the importance of more advanced diagnostics. Lipoprotein A, or LPA, emerges as a critical genetic risk factor for cardiovascular disease that isn't influenced by lifestyle, making its measurement essential for identifying individuals at significantly higher risk. Advanced lipid testing, such as nuclear magnetic resonance, NMR, or vertical autoprofile, VAP testing, provides a more detailed picture of lipoprotein particles, their size, number, and density, revealing risks that standard tests might miss. Coronary artery calcium, CAC, scoring, a non-invasive CT scan, offers a direct measure of arterial plaque burden, providing powerful prognostic information. Armed with this data, interventions can be far more precise. This might involve optimizing Zone 2 cardio and strength training to improve insulin sensitivity and reduce inflammation, dietary adjustments to manage lipids and blood sugar, and potentially pharmacological interventions, like statins or other lipid-lowering drugs, used strategically based on calculated risk, not just on hitting arbitrary cholesterol numbers. The aim is to aggressively manage factors like LDL particle number, triglycerides, inflammation, and insulin resistance long before any clinical symptoms like chest pain or heart attack manifest. When considering cancer, the paradigm also shifts towards proactive detection and risk reduction. Cancer isn't viewed as a singular entity, but as a complex group of diseases often driven by genetic mutations accumulated over time, influenced by environmental and lifestyle factors. While standard screenings, mammograms, colonoscopies are important, Medicine 3.0 seeks earlier detection and prevention strategies. This can involve utilizing advanced screening technologies, understanding genetic predispositions through testing, and rigorously applying the foundational health pillars. Exercise, as discussed, plays a role in reducing the risk and improving outcomes for many cancers. Nutrition, particularly avoiding processed foods and maintaining a healthy weight, also contributes significantly. The focus is on creating a biological environment that is less conducive to cancer cell growth and proliferation, and catching potential issues at their absolute earliest, most treatable stages, often long before they would be detected by conventional methods. Neurodegenerative diseases, particularly Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, represent another major frontier. The book links cognitive decline strongly to the other chronic diseases, especially metabolic dysfunction and cardiovascular health. Poorly managed insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, and compromised vascular health are increasingly recognized as significant contributors to brain aging and disease. The same strategies that support cardiovascular and metabolic health, optimized exercise, especially Zone 2, thoughtful nutrition, quality sleep, and stress management, are paramount for preserving cognitive function. Early detection through cognitive assessments and potentially monitoring specific biomarkers may become increasingly important. The message is empowering. Lifestyle choices made today profoundly impact our brain health decades down the line. Building cognitive reserve through lifelong learning, social engagement, and crucially, maintaining physical and metabolic health offers the best defense against cognitive decline. Metabolic dysfunction, often starting with insulin resistance, is perhaps the most foundational of the four horsemen, acting as a gateway to many other chronic conditions. Insulin resistance occurs when our cells become less responsive to insulin, the hormone responsible for ushering glucose into cells for energy. This leads to higher blood glucose and insulin levels, promoting inflammation, fat storage, and damage to blood vessels over time. Type 2 diabetes is essentially a state of severe insulin resistance and pancreatic exhaustion. The book emphasizes that insulin resistance is often reversible or preventable through lifestyle interventions. Consistent exercise, particularly the mitochondrial-boosting Zone 2 training, dramatically improves insulin sensitivity. Dietary strategies that manage carbohydrate intake and focus on whole foods help prevent the excessive blood sugar and insulin spikes that drive resistance. Achieving and maintaining a healthy body composition, particularly reducing visceral fat around the organs, is also critical. By optimizing metabolic health, we not only reduce the risk of diabetes, but also significantly mitigate the risks associated with cardiovascular disease, neurodegeneration, and potentially certain cancers. It's about restoring the body's natural metabolic efficiency. To enact this proactive vision, Medicine 3.0 relies on a suite of sophisticated tools and a shift in mindset. Tracking biomarkers becomes far more comprehensive than the standard annual physical. We need to monitor not just cholesterol and glucose, but a wider array of markers including specific lipid particle measures, LDL-P, HDL-C, triglycerides, inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein, hs-CRP, hormone levels, and more. Understanding the trends of these markers over time, rather than just isolated numbers, provides invaluable insight into our physiological trajectory. Genetic testing can reveal predispositions, helping to personalize screening protocols and lifestyle recommendations. For example, knowing one carries a gene variant for high LPA might warrant a different cardiovascular monitoring strategy than someone without it. Pharmacology, too, finds its place, but not as a first-line defense or a crutch for poor habits. Instead, medications are viewed as precise tools to be deployed strategically when lifestyle interventions alone are insufficient to mitigate significant, data-driven risks. Drugs like metformin, traditionally used for diabetes, might be considered for individuals with significant insulin resistance, even before a formal diabetes diagnosis, based on biomarker data. Statins might be prescribed not just for high LDL-C, but for individuals with elevated LPA or evidence of atherosclerosis, based on a thorough risk assessment. The key is using these powerful tools intelligently, guided by comprehensive data and a clear goal of risk reduction, rather than waiting for disease to become clinically apparent. Underpinning all of this is a necessary shift in mindset. This journey requires patience, discipline, and a willingness to engage actively in managing one's own health. It demands a long-term perspective, understanding that the benefits of these lifestyle interventions compound over years and decades. It means embracing discomfort, the effort required for strength training, the sustained pace of Zone 2 cardio, the discipline of healthy eating, recognizing it as productive discomfort that builds resilience and health span. It requires continuous learning and adaptation, staying informed, and potentially working with healthcare providers who are also committed to this proactive, data-driven model of Medicine 3.0. It's about taking ownership, moving from being a passive recipient of care to an active participant in optimizing our own longevity and vitality. The ultimate message is one of empowerment. We are not simply subject to the ravages of time and disease. By understanding the science, embracing the foundational pillars of exercise, nutrition, sleep, and emotional well-being, and utilizing the tools of modern diagnostics and targeted interventions, we can actively shape our future health. We can significantly reduce our risk of the major chronic diseases that shorten lives and diminish quality of life. This proactive, lifelong commitment allows us to move towards a future where aging is not synonymous with decline, but a process that can be navigated with vitality, function, and freedom. It's about preparing today for a healthier tomorrow, ensuring we don't just live longer, but live better, for longer, truly aiming to outlive the diseases that threaten us.